I want to welcome everyone to our January ELPCO meeting. I'm Jason Stevenson. I'm one of the co-chairs at ELPCO. And this is our first meeting actually since October. So we've been on, I guess what the Car Talk guys would say, a puzzler vacation, right? That's what they used to say. But we're back now. And I want to introduce my co-chair of ELPCO. Cool. And we have a couple of our ELPCO board members here in the audience we want to recognize. Chris Firstenau from the Gilmer Park area, appreciate that. Nancy Phillip, 9th and 9th Business Representative. Jeff Larson, representing East Emerson. Right, can I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. And Andrew Stone, our new East Liberty Park representative, appreciate that. And Judy Short and Dave Richards are...
I didn't do it.
Pardon?
I didn't do it.
That's later on the agenda. Our land use advisors help us out a lot. So nice to have a big crowd here. We appreciate, of course, all the city employees and public safety officials that are here today as well. We've got a packed agenda, so I'd appreciate it if folks could keep to their time zones to make sure we can move through. We're starting a couple minutes late. We'll have some interactive presentations, some slideshows that we're going to go through as well, including a video. It's a special day. We'll maybe turn down the lights a little bit to make sure that works. But we always start off with the Salt Lake City Fire Department because we never know where they're going to be called to. So Station 5, right here in the heart of ELPCO, 9th to 9th. Please come on down. If you guys could stand right here, that way you can be in front of our Facebook Live audience.
Behind you. You standing there.
It's like one of those sneaking around. You're probably good at hide and seek.
Yes, sir. All right, everyone. My name's John. I'm with the Salt Lake City Fire Department. We're from Fire Station 5. Where you guys need me to be? Am I okay?
One step forward.
Good. Excellent. So, pretty short and simple for us this time. Chief asked us to get the message out about smoke detectors. Daryl asked us to add on carbon monoxide detectors. So, those kind of detectors are only good for about 10 years. So if you look at the back of your detector, there's a date that it was manufactured. If you don't know when it was, it's probably more than 10 years ago. It's worth looking at replacing those. We gotta go. There's some things about new hires. We want to hire employees. Go to our website.
So we weren't kidding. Our Salt Lake City Fire Department Station 5 is sitting here. We appreciate that. Actually, we've got someone who's going to take over. All right, thank you very much.
I'll finish for him.
You don't mind standing right about there?
Right here. You need to like that.
I know. I got to.
Okay, so smoke detectors, like he was saying, they're only good for about 10 years. We actually go on a lot of notifier alarms where people's smoke detectors are going off. We get there, it turns out there's like 10, 12, 15, 20 years old, and they really don't work anymore. So, I mean, if you had an actual fire or CO problem, they don't necessarily detect, all the detection system in there doesn't work very well. So if you haven't checked your detectors in a while, pull them down, look on the back. There is a date that's on there somewhere, and it'll tell you exactly how old it is. And if it's older than 10 years, highly suggest you get it replaced. We also are hiring, like he mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you mount those on the wall instead of the ceiling?
You can. They need to be up high. There's a dead air space about 12 to 18 inches down from the ceiling, so it needs to be right below that. But yeah, you can mount it on the wall.
Because my ceilings are like 12 feet high, and when I place the batteries, I have to get out of the gap.
So one thing that would help on that, they actually make, they actually make 10-year batteries now. So you can get a detector that has a 10-year battery. It's a sealed battery. You never have to change it. You still need to check it every now and then, push the button, make sure it works.
But if I could put it on the wall, that would...
Yeah, you don't want to put it down too far because obviously smoke rises. And so you want to get that, get a detector as quick as possible. So, any other questions on that? Sorry. Yeah.
You also don't want to put them in corners.
Yeah, exactly.
Smoke filter in there.
Yep. So the smoke, when it hits the ceiling, it kind of goes over to the wall and kind of banks down, so it will miss about 12 to 18 inches on that corner. So you want to avoid that. So, any other questions on that? Okay, so we are hiring. If you know anyone that's interested, you can go to slcfire.com and fill out an application. I think the application period is open until March, middle of March. I can't remember the exact date. And then there's a testing process, involves a written test, oral board, some other things from there. And there's a lot of information on that website if you're interested in doing that. I didn't look at this as well as I should have before we came. Yeah, that's all I got. Do you guys have any questions on it? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Are the openings for firefighters?
Yeah, so entry-level firefighters with here in the city. Yeah, you have to be 21, you have to be 18 at the date of the written, yeah. So. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. They come with like 12 bags for these meetings. We do appreciate Salt Lake City Fire Department. Thank you guys for coming. Station 5, it's always fun to stop by just to see what's going on. My kids love to go there. I know someday they'll get in trouble and end up washing those fire trucks. So, but at least now we can go.
Anyone can watch them come over and watch.
I bet it takes a while. Next on the agenda, we have Salt Lake City Police Department. We have Detective David King. Detective King, good to see you again. Thanks for coming by.
So I'm Dave King with the Salt Lake City Police Department. Some of you, I don't know if you've been here before, but we'll just go over a couple of the numbers for some of the stuff that's going on in the area. I try to just remind people all the time that these numbers are stuff that our administration looks at constantly. You can get onto our website, the slcpd.com, and go to open data, and you can go down to ComStat, and it has all of the numbers that we're looking at, all the stuff that's been reported to us. Now that is kind of a broad because your little area in District 5, there's also Ballpark and Liberty Wells, but there is another section where you get on there for crime reports, and you can actually break it down, and you can actually look at your individual area and see what's going on. Just some stuff to, just some ideas so you can see what's going on. If you ever have any questions as far as what's going on, you can, I don't remember the exact address, but if you get into Google, you can type in like Salt Lake City Dispatch, and you can actually kind of get like a pretty close up-to-date call and see where it's at, if it's holding, if it's pending, or what's going on in the area. It's not going to give the exact address just for safety issues and privacy, but it is kind of something where you can kind of see what's going on if you are curious. Looking at the numbers as far as what's going on, comparing the first week in January to this week, with stats, it's kind of a roller coaster. I'm taking a stats class right now up at Weaver, and it's just driving me nuts trying to figure out how they work them. But looking at them, last week some of the numbers were up a little bit. This week some of the numbers are down a little bit. Looking at them, it looks like last week we had like what would classify as robbery, business robbery. Last week we didn't really see an increase. This week we had a little bit of an increase, but I think when I was looking at it, I think it was something where there was a retail theft, that there was some kind of a violence where it maybe escalated to something a little bit more than just a simple theft. I think that's where that came from. Burglaries this week are down. Last week we reported that, sorry, I'm looking at my notes just to make sure, but burglaries, we had two residential and then 5 others, which might have been like a detached garage. This week we had last week there was one residential and 3 like an outline building. So it's gone down a little bit. It's kind of a roller coaster. We do what we can. Our detectives are constantly watching this, and we're always out trying to be proactive. Motor vehicles were down a little bit. Beginning of January there were 4, and last week we had 7 vehicle thefts. It's winter. We do have some cold days. Just keep reminding people, don't leave keys in vehicles. Please don't leave stuff running. It happens quite a bit where it's just simply looking at crime of opportunity. I know I said it before, but there are times where we do go around and we look for vehicles that are running. All you got to do is just drive around, and you just see exhaust coming out of the car, and you automatically know when the cars are running. Because it's cold, it's a dead giveaway. People do watch for that kind of stuff. Let's see, what else we can talk about? I think that one of the things I want to talk about is that vehicle burglaries are down. The first week in January we had 12 compared to last week there was 6. So people look for crimes of opportunity. Don't ever leave anything in the vehicle. It is going down. Please keep reminding people, don't leave stuff in vehicles. If you do happen to have an incident, I know a lot of times people do get frustrated with calling us because sometimes we can do something, sometimes we can't, sometimes it takes forever, sometimes we're really quick. Depends on the situation, but we do want to know what's going on in your area. You guys are our eyes and ears, so let us know how we can help you out. Let us know where you're seeing the trend, and that's where our admin will try to help reallocate resources to try to help out with some of those problem areas. Kind of just local, I know that Liberty Park has always been a concern as far as what's going on. I've been looking at numbers, trying to talk with people, trying to get some stuff, trying to see if I can figure out a way to visualize how many people are here during the summer, because during the summer it peaks, winter time it dips down. The numbers that we have for last month, because I'll get the number, or I'll get like the top 10 for the month previous, and I can look the next month. But for the month of December, we had a total of 30 calls for service. That was just somebody seeing an issue in the park, giving us a call. And then we had what we called on view, which is where police are being proactive, initiating a call that they see something. And we had 21 on view cases from our officers just being in the park, seeing stuff, trying to help kind of deter some of that problem. So it's something we're constantly looking at, just trying to see what we can do. Does anybody have any questions for me?
On Thursday, either last week or the week before, I can't remember. 2 pretty horrific things happened within an hour, like 6 and 7 in the morning.
Okay.
There was a bad crash at Liberty Heights Fresh. I couldn't find a thing on your website. And then there was a murder on Timothy's or Logan Avenue in the back street there. Do you know anything about UFOs?
I don't have a lot of information. I just know that there was something that occurred. But a lot of time with some of those cases, they will, like, I'll get maybe a little headline saying there was a little bit of an incident, but they block it just because they want to try to keep that information there. So I don't really have a whole lot of information on that yet.
Because I would think that would be announced somehow.
Sometimes, maybe depending on circumstances, but I'm not exactly sure a lot of the details on that yet. Yeah.
Oh, in the past year, how many people have they caught that were stealing automobiles or stealing from automobiles? Or, you know that?
Let's see.
Let me repeat it.
How
How many people have been caught that have been
So
messing with cars?
I'm just trying to see if it was. If you go back onto the website, you can go back to previous years, and I want to say that they do have a end-year total. I'm trying to see if I can pull that up right now.
Just curious if we're ever getting any of these people.
We do get them, and it's actually kind of our auto theft detectives are actually pretty good, and it's kind of funny that they know a lot of the key players, and so they'll get cars, and they a lot of times they believe it was done by a certain person, but sometimes it's a waiting game, just waiting for stuff to go through the state crime lab to get back that evidence.
Gotcha.
I'll have to look. I want to say there's an end of year, but yeah, if you get on there, it'll have all that information.
Okay.
But unless I look at that for last year, but it's on there.
Do you track traffic accidents in the area, and if so, what areas or what intersections are high traffic accident intersections?
We don't. Let's see. I don't get any kind of numbers as far as specific traffic accidents. I'd have to go and pull that specifically.
I'm seeing on 13th South and 13th South, 11th East, there are some issues where squeaking brakes, I mean, we hear it a lot. And you can hear it a couple of houses down where I live. So we know something's going on there. And the fire department has complained about it. And I think transportation was supposed to change the lights, but we're hearing, and I've seen an accident. So there's something going on there. I'm just wondering if you track the accidents And if so, that'll tell us what needs to be changed. If not, just bring it up.
So we have a division for traffic accidents. They might have some kind of data that they don't share with me, but
We actually have some folks from Salt Lake Transportation in the room. Tom Millar, looks like you have an answer.
Yes, we do try. We get them from the police department, from the Department of Public Safety, from the State Department of Transportation, and then we combine all of those into our database. So I can give you the link to it. It's available online, and if you're interested in more in-depth crash statistics and analysis, I can give you the card of our, or the phone number of our traffic safety.
And that's available on the Salt Lake City Transportation website?
It should be. I'm not sure if it's on that website or if it links to another
A separate
one,
website.
but you should be able to find it through there.
Okay.
There's actually a really slick map that you can blow up that shows location and frequency of each accident.
I know a lot of the problem on that intersection is Hub and Spoke is out so close to the street.
the what is?
Hub and Spoke, the restaurant,
Oh,
is so close to that street that people coming up on 13th just are going bat out of hell down that street. And if you're coming along 11th, you don't see each other at all. And I have a friend who should have been dead that got hit right at that exact intersection because the person went right through and she came and you can't see each other. So it's a major blind spot if people are speeding down that hill.
Which they shouldn't be doing.
You can't see what's coming.
Anybody have any other questions or anything for me? If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, and I can look into stuff for you. Number is 801-799-3624. My email is ciudistrict5@slcgov.com, or if you get onto our website, you scroll down and there's a spot where it says find my CIU officer, and my information's on there.
It's on the front of our agenda right there, and also on the back of your agenda where we list a lot of important phone numbers and contacts. So, and you're very responsive. We appreciate that. Great. All right, moving on. We're actually on time. This is great. This is almost a first for us at ELPCO. We next have the Telegraph Exchange Loss presentation. We have Micah Peters from Clearwater Homes, who is going to talk about this project. We actually had an open house on this project. I should say Salt Lake City Planning had an open house on this project. I believe it was January 9th. January 9th over at the 10th East Senior Center. So some of you might have seen that project there. We asked Micah to come tonight to give a little bit more info, answer some more questions, sort of be in front of the community. He agreed to. We really appreciate that. And we've got a slide deck that you've got, and you can actually use this to help advance it. Let me get that going for you. You want to just hold that and just introduce yourself. I'll get it rolled up for you.
Want to thank Jason and Daryl and David Geller from the city. All of them worked on this and got me on the agenda, and it's a lot of behind-the-scenes work, so thanks, guys. My name is Micah Peters. I'm CEO for Clearwater Homes. You guys probably see some of my buildings downtown Salt Lake City. Just a little history on this project, 847 South, 8th East, the old Telegraph Exchange building. It's one of the tallest buildings at 9th and 9th, if not the tallest one. And as a kid, going to Judge Memorial, we always were down there looking at it, hoping to break in and mess around. And so it's always been kind of a mystery building, and we were always in the neighborhood just kind of trying to get in that building. So in 2011, when the LDS Church decided to sell it, I cashed in my chips on every other asset I had at the time and was able to buy the building. Historically, it's pretty neat, and you guys will see some of the stuff coming up. I've curated a series of 12 photos from World War II when it was used as an actual switch station, where there was women on the walls on every level, 70 women per level, running the switches for the phone across the Wasatch Front, and pretty amazing kind of historical photos, and then some with the staff actually out in front of the original building with the original porch and everything. But they're really nice archival photos, so we'll try to get those out to the community. So that's kind of the background on the building. Again, I purchased it in 2011, and then we got super busy downtown with some bigger projects, so we're just kind of getting back up on this project to do it. The project summary, can we go?
Do you want the site plan or do you want
Let's start with the site
site
plan.
plan, okay.
That's best, and then I'll go through some building images.
Got that.
So the project summary is proposed is that the building's about 16,000 square feet, and we'll have 6 lofts in the existing building. And just so everybody knows, this adaptive reuse work is super challenging, and it's really the reason a lot of Salt Lake's historic buildings and Ogden's historic buildings get torn down, because the price to do the adaptive reuse is typically 2.5 to 3 times the cost of building new construction. And it's the seismic upgrades, it's the physical constraints of the historic buildings that don't match current code. It's getting elevators into them, and then a whole litany of other items that you guys don't want to hear about. So that's why a lot of historic buildings kind of get torn down. We're going to have 6 units in the 16,000 square foot building, and then we're proposing 17 3-story modern townhomes on our 2 parcels, which are located here. We have about 0.80 of an acre, 80% of an acre with our 2 parcels. And our essentially what we're proposing, we were watching really closely what the folks did on the Nexus project, which was Mutual Beauty. And our position on that was that in terms of their communication with the community, that group of folks, those business guys, kind of fell out of the tree and hit every limb on the way down. And a lot of you probably showed up at that planning and zoning meeting that they just marched right towards without kind of engaging the community. And there was a lot of antipathy. A lot of people are super pissed off. And so our strategy has been to really engage the community. And we've had over 24 independent meetings with property owners in the community. On 8th East specifically, between 8th and 9th South, there's 20 houses. And of those 20 houses, as we kind of walk into this meeting tonight, we have expressed approval and support from 11 of those 20. 5 of those 20 are non-owner occupied kind of rentals that won't respond. And so I'm just trying to demonstrate that we're really reaching out and talking to people. Again, the folks on the block are super important.
I'd like to rebut that.
I'm just curious about, as neighbors, maybe there's a time for questions at the end, but.
I just want to make sure that as you're presenting, that's kind of an unfair presentation of the block of 8.
But there's 20 houses?
No, just that you have that much support. Like it's all positive.
Or that, so.
Well, I didn't finish the statement about the answer.
Always to us.
Carry on.
Yeah. So ultimately, we've really tried to reach out to folks and talk to them, including Nathan. And we haven't spoken with you guys other than at the open house. But we validate everybody's opinions. The reason we've tried to be so overt about talking to people is because I'm going to own or occupy this development. I'm going to self-manage it. I'm going to live there. So it's super important that we have a successful kind of community interaction as part of the entitlement process. So getting back to the project, just some specifics about it. In watching the Nexus entitlement process or the Mutual Beauty, in addition to the density proposed on that kind of neighborhood commercial zoning that they had, people were really uptight about, and rightly so, about the parking. And so this zone requires 1.25 stalls per unit, and we're overparked on this site. We just want to be super clear about that. There's 46 stalls on the campus, and all but 12 of those stalls are in garages in the units. And then there's 12 surface stalls which are intentionally placed away from the street, so you're seeing no cars on the site from the street front. And so that's something we wanted to do. Every stall on the campus, all 46 stalls, are electric vehicle stalls. And that kind of fits with the project philosophy of a zero emissions community. The residences will not have gas meters. A lot of you at the open house heard me say that 38% of the carbon dioxide on the Wasatch Front is contributed from the burning of residential gas. And so we've, over the last 2 years, developed architecture and mechanical systems to go all electrical and then get 100% of that electricity from renewable sources from solar farms in southern Utah. So we're going to deploy that concept here. We're really excited about it, not contributing to the carbon dioxide in the local air shed. In addition to the 46 stalls, that does not include our street front, the 4 stalls that are on the street front. So if you included those, then it's 50. But most developers, if they go into the city, they consume the credits from the street too. And in this situation, we have not consumed the credits from the street. So this is Chase Avenue here, and we have 5 garages off of Chase Avenue. Those are all 2-car garages. And then this is our single. We didn't want to break it up and have a bunch of driveways on the AP street front. Again, just for penetration into the project and having this visibility of a lot of cars. So this is our main 20-foot wide drive aisle. I apologize, this is mislabeled here. It says it's 24 and it's 20, and I'll get that corrected. I noticed that when we got here tonight. Let's spin through some of the images here, so I can just hit.
I think this is on the slide right there.
Oh, right, yeah, because the other one.
You want to go to the other one
now?
now?
Please, thank
Sure.
you so much. And we can go back to this if you have questions about it as we're speaking. We can pull it back up.
The clicker should work. Try it. Does it? It's not a PowerPoint. It's
just the up and down.
It must only work with PowerPoint.
Okay.
So if you just let me know where
Thanks,
I can
Jason.
get you to where you need to go.
Didn't mean to make you sit there. We'll start with 1, 2.
Got it.
So this is the retrofit of the historic building, inclusive of the same porch from 1914, which the church pulled off in the 80s. As kids were using it to jump the fence to get into the yard. We're going to rebuild the historic porch. We also have a kind of interactive courtyard area in the front with bistro tables and kind of sitting area. And then go to the next slide.
Sure.
Thanks, Jason.
That pool will be fenced off. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll probably glass.
As someone with little kids, I'm like thinking about that.
Yeah, the health department will make us do that. We'll have a piece of glass across the front. This is just a courtyard view, kind of looking from the street back past the historic building, but heavily forested. This is looking north in front of the building. The front porches to these 4 units on the front here will be, they'll have a small courtyard in front of their porch to hang out on, in front of their structure, in front of their door. And then a lot of people, a lot of developers, when they do 3-story modern towns, they put the bedroom level on the top floor, and we figured that you're spending 90% of your time in the kitchen or the great room, so we inverted that. Our bedroom levels are on the 2nd level, and our top floor is just a 10-foot ceiling with open concept floor plan with an open kitchen. And then this front door here is a 16-foot wide by 9-foot tall accordion door, so the whole kind of top can open up. Again, for that kind of street engagement, both from the front porch and that kind of from that top level. If you're looking out between the 2, the historic building and the units, this is a drive aisle example of the drive aisle between the units. Essentially, cars would go into these garages. Just a front porch view off of 8th East looking east. And then the same thing, front porch is looking from the north, looking south. We're going to have an exterior elevator core here on this side, going up to the rooftop deck. Again, it's heavily forested. Everybody be able to access that and get up there and enjoy it.
Which side will the elevator shaft be on?
North side.
North side.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Some more views from the front. And then just more of an elevated view there. And a front view. So let's probably go back to the land plan to kind of have a discussion. If any of you need to contact me, I'm absolutely available. And also, if you want me to email you the renderings and the land plan, more than happy to do that. If you want to give me your information after the meeting. Or if you just want to get together and chat, I can meet you at the building. And we're just an open book in terms of kind of talking to the community about this stuff. That's all I have. And it's certainly open to questions.
Yeah, that's
I
what
don't
we're
know
here
what the
for.
format is here, but
Yeah, quick Q&A is a good idea. So, and we have David Gellner from Salt Lake City Planning, and you're sort of working with this project, right, from the planning department?
Again, yes,
Okay.
we take it through the public process.
Got it.
So I can answer
Process and technical questions, we have an expert here. So yeah, go ahead, Micah, just work the room.
You promised to keep the 1.2 parking stalls per unit because the new law coming in says you don't have to have any.
no, 1.2 is the requirement. I'm over 2.
Yeah, but the new ordinance that passed the planning commission says adaptive reuse of buildings built prior to 1944 do not have any parking in them.
Listen, the parking stalls I'm representing here are non-negotiable. I need them. I want them. That's what's happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
What's the rental versus buying?
100% rental, and it's going to be there's not a for sale component. That answers the question. Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. Full seismic upgrade. Yeah, in accordance with structural engineering requirements. Yeah.
And Mike,
in fact, just if you want me to explain that a little bit, that exterior elevator core that I showed you, we're using a steel structure that is on the side of the building, and it literally has a bunch of steel tendons that reach out and hug the unreinforced masonry structure to upgrade the seismic rating on it. And it's we thought about the least invasive way to do that, so it didn't have this exoskeleton of steel on the building holding up the bricks. We looked at like just tons of different strategies on that, and we were just looking for the least visually obstructive version of that. Sorry.
if you don't mind repeating the question too, just so that
I'm
everyone
sorry.
can hear.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
that's good.
She just asked about upgrading the seismic.
Yeah.
Did you say it was rental?
Yes. Yes.
What's the zoning on the height?
So the existing building here is like 58 feet, and it's in the RM 45 zone. And so, and that lot for the historic building cuts off like right here. And then this lot, which is 0.29 acres and currently has 2 houses on it, is zoned R2. And part of our application to the city for the PUD is rezoning the R2. If we don't get the rezone on the R2, this street front, which the city really wanted us to pull our buildings forward, will remain the same. The reason we proposed that originally was the financial hardship in terms of doing adaptive reuse on the historic building, trying to obviously justify saving the building. And so those extra 5 units would represent 1 in this line and the 4 back here. But the street front, even if we didn't get the rezone, would remain the same.
What's the height zone now? You're saying you're trying to get
For the
that
R2
changed.
zone?
You're saying you're trying to get that changed.
Oh, yeah, so the R2 zone next to an R45, and the R2 has a 30-foot height limit
Right.
on it,
And you
and these
want
buildings are 30 feet.
And you want it to be how high?
Well, it's not about the height. The height, it fits in with the R2 zone at 30 feet.
Okay.
It's just that those extra 5 units that we're looking to get.
Okay.
Yeah. Cindy?
Mike, it is really a question for David. Wherever you went. So David, if you had a chance to look at the outcome data on the rezoning that occurred, rezoning properties consistent with how they were being used, so if they were used as multifamily, it was zoned multifamily,
Right.
it was the one of the largest since '95 rezonings that's occurred between the 70s and 90s and 7 South and 9 South. And it also brought the non-conforming businesses into compliance with the new small business laws.
That will be something we look at in our analysis of changing the master plan and the zoning. And again, taking into consideration that that was a point in time and those conditions and needs and other things may have changed over time.
It was 6 years ago.
Right, but that was 6 years ago. Yes.
What about the neighborhoods? What about the people that bought these homes as a residential area and not a project area?
And again, now the existing parcels.
You just don't care about?
No, we hear very much about that, but the existing parcel that the Telegraph building is already zoned for multifamily. So
And that's a
the
beautiful.
other parcel, right, the other parcel, the developer can ask to change that zoning. And that's a matter that the planning division will make a recommendation to the planning commission. The planning commission will make a recommendation to city council, and ultimately it's city council's decision to weigh all those things and see if they want to change the zoning. So, we do care about that, and we do factor all those things in, but it's not a planning decision. It's ultimately a city council decision on changing the zoning.
Which actually, as a resident, gives you more people to talk to,
Right.
including your new city council member, Darren Mano, who I'll talk about a little bit later. But there is a pretty good engagement process on this, and if you want to ask some more questions about how to do that, we'd be glad to talk through some of those.
To Cindy's point, is this is what we did just 6 years ago, and
Right.
it took 4 years of working with the city council and the mayor to downzone to R2 to protect just this field of our 8th East. I mean, if you drive on it, you can see we've got several versions of how to deal with development in our neighborhood, and at the north end, we have some houses that have been beautifully restored, and it seems to be working just great in that R2 zone. And so to say that times have changed, yes, they continue to change,
consider
but
that. Right.
we need to also understand that this is a neighborhood. And I am curious, the reason I stopped you, I'm sorry, I feel like the representation, as I am talking to neighbors who have lived there, I mean, we are relative newcomers and we've been there for 18 years. And everyone that I've talked to that I know on the street that's been there for that long has concerns about the density. I think we'd love to keep the Telegraph building. We'd love to see that preserved. We're all for a healthy, we're not trying to keep people out of our neighborhood.
We're also pro-density because we know that that's where the city needs. We need that. But we also think that there's a balance to be had there.
It feels too big. It feels too big
I mean, that's like, it doubles the number of cars on that
traffic.
street.
Got it. Okay.
Now, one thing to keep in mind with the RMF 45 parcel, and I'm in no way advocating for the project, I facilitate the process. Since that parcel is already zoned RMF 45, it allows multifamily uses. That is not a historically protected city landmark site, so that building could be scraped and the developer owner could build a 16-unit apartment building on that site. And if it met the zoning setbacks for front yard, side yard, parking and all that, it wouldn't even go through a public process. It's a building permit issue. So that's something that we're looking at in the totality of.
We're aware of that too. I have to say, as a neighborhood, that feels a little bit like a threat.
No, not at all.
But I'm just saying, that feels that way when that's the way it's portrayed. Like, hey, we're only doing it this big. Otherwise, we'd have to scrape the building. Does that make sense?
I'm
that's
just
the way it sort of comes.
I'm
across.
communicating the reality that parcel supports, as it is right now, with no rezoning, no process, 16 units, and the R2 parcel could support a duplex and remove the 2 single-family homes on it. So there's 18 units without any rezoning, and if it meets setbacks, it's a permitted use. So that's just a reality.
There were some questions back here in the back.
Yes.
You had mentioned that you were buying solar to zero carbon emissions. That means people living there, the utilities would be included, or how will that work?
Yeah, well, you would essentially, it's a system. I've been working with Rocky Mountain Power on essentially reserving solar panels on their farms in Milford. And if you guys have been following like Chris Parker and what the Give Corporation's been doing downtown, that new site where Barnes Bank used to be and the Coffee Garden. They're doing an all-electric project there, and that group, the Give group, has really pioneered this strategy. And we just want to make sure that we're being socially responsible with the local airshed. And essentially, each unit will have a meter, just a gas meter, no electric meter, and just an electric meter, no gas meter. And they would just pay that utility like they normally would.
Jane, your hand was up.
Well, I was wondering where we are. It's probably directed at David, whether we're on the agenda yet for the planning commission.
What the time frame is right now? Yeah. Okay.
Looking at March Planning Commission agenda.
And when do you expect to have staff report?
Usually about 3 weeks before that.
Rob, you had a question.
Well, just a comment. I'd like to interject. I don't see scraping of the Silicate building as a threat. I see it as an economic pressure with all the building we've seen going all around the city. Seen what happened down at Sugar House. My wife and I just bought the building immediately south. We're the next door neighbors. The church annex building to the Church of Christ. And one of the reasons why the church sold it to us is we kind of really, one of our imperatives was to keep the character of the neighborhood and not tear that building down. And so I see this as a very favorable compromise. It does keep that building there. I see all the other units, only 4 units are showing on the street, minimizes the visual impact of 23. I also see that front, I've been in the we've been in 9th to 9th for about 4 or 5 years now. I lived in the suburbs for 30 years. I've never had a greater sense of community walking through the streets. I mean, we're all here because we love this area for a variety of reasons. Character being one of them, character is building and engagement, neighborhood engagement, people walking their dogs, everything. And so I think this really is a great compromise given the economic realities of the growth pressures that are on Salt Lake. And so this to me is kind of about as good as it's going to get in terms of, coming back and backfilling the density throughout the city. And I think it's done in a very aesthetically pleasing, very viable, very community. I think there are some modern structures there, of course, but they nonetheless engage the street. Nexus doesn't engage the street. Nexus, kind of in my mind, sticks out like a sore thumb. Anyways, I think this, I really like this idea. I think it's a great economic use of that space and a nod to the pressures that are on the city of Salt Lake.
I just want to interject that we do have some folks from Salt Lake City here who are going to present on transportation. And so if you can just keep your comments or questions brief, because we do want to get to them and keep our meeting going, but we do want to hear from you. And Mike has also said he will meet with folks outside of this meeting. So please keep that in mind as we look at our time pressures and some folks waiting.
Yes.
I just kind of want to add to that. I'm actually supposed to be project. I grew up on 1016 Memphis Street, so just 7 blocks just east of here, and my parents live in Children's Hour, so I'm 99. And the project is great. My dad's actually a preservation architect, and so anytime we can save a beautiful structure, honestly, I'm just a big fan. I don't live right in the area, so I don't have the same context. I have to just completely admit that. And as a child, Jolly Corners and everything else, and I spent all my childhood down here in the 99th area. And it's a building that's always stuck out, but in a good way. And to see it scrape would just kill me. And ironically, I happen to be in real estate as well. What Mike has said about keeping a structure like that and retrofitting it and upgrading it, and just being candid, it costs a lot of money. My dad was the one who went around buying the old historic homes and renovating them before people would come and turn down because the cost is so expensive. And I'm just being candid with that. It's really expensive. So I think the modern architecture is really beautiful. It's not historic, it's beautiful. And to keep that awesome building, it's just an awesome building. Like, to see that thing torn down, it's been an icon for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have a question.
Just super quick. You talk about 4 years. I've been over 30 years in this area, and every time we work super hard to make it so you like living here. We've gone through a lot of things, and I think a lot of this is good, but families are moving in and they want a home, they want a house. It's gone over and over and over. I'm in the school district, and I love it, except if you could just put 2 houses where you're going to do that, because you need houses. And I just see this happens, then it gobbles up the next, it gobbles up the next, gobbles up the next. And we don't have houses anymore in this area, which is why we are here. And every house that gets gobbled up, I think it's a travesty.
It's an unfortunate precedent.
Maybe one more comment or question, Robert?
To that point, I really appreciate that you're preserving the building and its history. Furthermore, I mean, to keep this brief, admittedly I heard this on a podcast, but we're gonna, as far as property tax goes, we're gonna reach some kind of harsh truths if we keep on, as you know, Americans out in the West, if we keep on building and sprawling, either our taxes are going to go up astronomically, we're going to have to build on even tinier little lots. So in this circumstance, what you're doing is great. I support what you're doing, and I second the other comments that were made.
Regina. I just wanted to say that I think what I really like, given how much we love that neighborhood, is we've gotten to the parking. I think, clearly that's something, especially with the Nexus issue, it was huge, huge. And to think that you really put that thought into how it looks, and in all honesty, I really believe another developer would come in, knock it down, zone for what it's zoned for, you don't have to go through any process, and it could look ugly with tons of parking, a lot more problems. This is beautiful, this is thoughtful, this is intentional. This is growing the community in a way that has both that.
Not the whole thing's going that way.
Right, so we need to just do that piece, but I actually think I think it's a beautiful addition to the neighborhood without turning it into a sugar house, flubber or whatever.
So, the process that Dave talked about is Mike has held, this is the second or third public meeting that Mike has held to inform the neighborhood of the process. And some developers don't engage us like that, so we've been appreciative. Let me finish this. If you don't mind. So the process that will happen is in March, we will publish on the ELPCO website. There will be a public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Any and all of you are invited to attend that meeting. And all of you will be afforded 2 minutes to offer your opinions about the project. So this isn't the end of it by any means. And that's public notice given.
Right, and the Planning Commission can make a decision on the planned development application. That's the overall development plan, but it'll be contingent upon the rezone happening for that development plan to be ultimately approved.
And the rezone goes to the city council.
The rezone and the master plan go to the city council.
So there's really a two-part approval process for this. There's the planning commission and then there's the city council. Which one will come first? Or
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission will come
Planning
first.
Commission can make a decision on the plan development and a recommendation on the other two parts, the rezone and master.
And then send it up to the city council, which will then consider the rezone for the R2, which is the sort of northern portion of this. And that's where you can not just engage with the planning commission, but you can engage with your city council member as well. So there are still
email David, because he puts the comments from the community in the planning commission report.
Yep, and we will, ELPCO, if you don't get our newsletters, please sign up. You can do that to us personally or by actually scanning the QR code on the sign-up list that's going around. Or we will also probably flyer the neighborhood ahead of the planning commission meeting so that people know exactly when that is. You do that as well, I think.
Right, we have a public notice for the planning commission meeting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of engagement on this. This is not the last, by far, chance for you to get your voice out or to get your neighbors to make a comment. And we also, as a community council, get to say something to the planning commission as well, usually about what the process is like and what we hear from the community, trying to sum that up in a short statement. So.
And I'm certain that our new council member will continue the same process that Aaron did, actively soliciting comments.
Darren Mano is our new council member, and I'll introduce who he is a little bit at the end of the meeting.
The city frequently, on a project of this nature, will give a window online for comments to be received. All that is gathered is given to the Planning and Zoning Commission, is given to the City Council. They pay attention and they read it. So Michael, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
You
Thanks,
wanna
everybody.
introduce
Again,
yourself?
any of you want to reach out to me, I'll give my email and number.
Michael's email is right here.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
You bet.
Jason, thanks, sir.
No problem. Here's your flash drive. I'll take the
9th and
file.
9th, I don't know who's.
We have got Salt Lake City Transportation and Salt Lake City Engineering here to talk about. You want me to get the video going?
Yeah, I think so.
Got it. I told you guys we'd have multimedia today. Let me pause it. Let me do a quick introduction. Some of you guys noticed a new roundabout in our neighborhood. We're not in Paris. This is actually the Paris of Utah, as we like to call it, ELPCO. But yeah, we've got some new stuff going on in 9 South. A lot of this went in last year. We've had a couple of weeks or months to try it out. We went to Salt Lake City Transportation and Engineering and said we want to stay engaged on this process. So we solicited a lot of feedback from the community through nextdoor.com, through our email newsletters at ELPCO. And Nancy Phillip, our 9th and 9th liaison, put together a really cool report, which if you want a copy of it, it's here. It was also in the newsletter and it's linked on your agenda, which summarizes some of the public comments that have come out about the roundabout, about the 9th South project. So then we asked Salt Lake City Transportation Engineering to take a look at these comments and come to us and tell us what they plan to do to sort of make this even better. I mean, I think most of us, I like the roundabout. I think it's pretty cool. But we realize there are some friction points or some things that maybe could be added and improved. So Salt Lake City Transportation Engineering are going to give us their take on what's happened and what could happen in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, and thanks to all of you for staying involved. It's been 2 years since our first open house, which was actually over in the Chase Mill. So it's good to bring it home now, 2 years later. I have more gray hair. Some of you have more gray hair. We've all grown, and I'm glad that we've been able to engage, and it's nice to look out at the audience and recognize most of you, whereas we didn't know each other before. So I just wanted to tell you that we have heard you throughout the whole process and since construction has started to wind down.
So we have a before and after video here. It's about 3 minutes of before and then 3 minutes after. And you can tell that even our drone flying skills before were not very good. You see that right after we got it a little bit.
If you spot your car, you get bonus points. So
More solid. So yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to come in and give you guys an update. I don't know.
Questions? Yeah. And we've been hearing for months from you guys. We don't want you to think that this is the first time that we've heard any of your comments, and so we want to first address some of the frequently asked questions that we've gotten, and then tell you about some of the short-term changes that we'll be making to address some of the concerns that people have, and then some long-term plans for how to continue to address some of these issues. So the first question is, where does the 9-line trail go? It's that new wide concrete section that's right next to another concrete section, which is the sidewalk. So the wider one is for bicycle traffic. The sidewalk still remains for pedestrian traffic. And eventually, the plan that has been on the city's books for several years will extend from Immigration Canyon all the way out to I-215. And it runs either along Sunnyside Avenue, along 900 South, or along a former rail corridor west of I-15. So it looks short, and it looks like it doesn't go anywhere. And currently, it does not go anywhere. The plan is to continue it in either direction.
Excuse me, though, isn't there a bike lane on the street, though?
There is not a bike lane on the street, no. No, we did not put one in so that we could encourage people to use the...
Yes.
The bike lane on 9th and 9th on strip.
We didn't add any bike lanes in.
So that'll be wiped out, because there's a painted bike lane.
That just indicates that a bicycle could use the street if they so chose. It doesn't give them a dedicated space, but at that intersection where we haven't built anything yet, to get them to connect to where the 9-line trail starts, we have what are called shared lane markings. Another question was, who is responsible for the different kinds of maintenance? You may have seen a lot of snow on that trail that wasn't magically cleared when the street was cleared. So we have our not within transportation, but another division in the city that's responsible for maintenance, and we'll start maintaining that now with the funds, with the maintenance funds that they have, and then we'll apply for a budget that meets the intensity of maintenance that the team determines is necessary after they have a couple of months of maintaining it. So although it wasn't maintained immediately when the project opened, it will be in the future. The landscaping, the grass on either side of the trail will still be the responsibility of the property owner as it was before the trail went in. And while the grass is in a different location, most of the properties did not see an increase in the amount of grass that's now just
so in this new section that we just built, there is a bike lane going eastbound between 11th East and 13th East, right?
Yes,
And then going westbound where this vehicle is going, there's a shared lane symbol, which means people on bicycles and people driving can share that lane. But that configuration is just between 11th East and 13th East. You'll see as we go west of the roundabout that the trail is on this side of the road, and that's where we want people on bikes to travel on.
At one of the meetings about
both ways on the trail?
yes,
It's wide enough that you can basically.
and I'll follow up on something that'll make that a little bit more clear that we'll be doing in the spring. The reason why we put a bike lane going up that very steep hill is that when we had a meeting about 18 months ago, the community told us, don't waste money on building a really, really fancy trail going straight up the steepest hill. Do a bike lane and then maybe offer some alternative routes that go more winding through Gilmer Drive, McClellan, and other routes. As far as ramps go, pedestrian ramps down to crosswalks, excluding the trail, the property owner is still responsible for maintaining those ramps as they were before the construction project. So that doesn't change. There was a question that came to us about what the red ring around the roundabout is for. That is so that large vehicles, and I mean like large vehicles, semi-trucks, very large fire trucks, can turn around the roundabout without damaging any of the interior of the roundabout itself, any of that landscaping. But most motor vehicles and trucks will stay in the gray concrete roadway area and won't have to go up onto that.
That's not a go-kart track?
It's not a go-kart track. Someone asked me if they could walk their dog out there. I wouldn't recommend it from a safety standpoint and from a quality of a dog walk standpoint. And you never know when you'd be able to get out of there. And then another question was, were large and emergency response vehicles considered in the design? Yes, they were. We consulted with the fire department, with our sanitation folks that pick up the garbage and the recycling, and walked through all of our design ideas with them before we decided on the roundabout and the current design. And then they were also able to do some testing. There is a follow-up question about the intersection at McClellan Street that we'll hit.
And while Tom was looking at his notes, the day they did the unveiling, we had the fortuitous opportunity to watch the hook and ladder come out of the fire department, went all the way around that roundabout and never hit the rim.
They really liked it. I think sometimes they just take it out, run it around, and then park it back. And then I'll let Adon talk about some of our immediate next steps and some of our long-term plans.
Right. So if you go back,
Sure.
Actually, yeah.
Like right there? Or
So if you guys can picture where McClellan, the intersection of McClellan, you have Hip and Humble on the north side, and then there's a hair salon on the south side, right in that.
I think we're coming up on it.
Right.
Yeah, let me go back. It's the turquoise building in Sip and Humble.
Yeah, it's right here.
Let me pause.
So right now, as emergency vehicles are either coming from McClellan or just making this wide turn here, they're mounting onto this curve right here, and it's creating some mud tracks right now that the soils are. Oh, there you go.
And on the north side too.
Yes, so on both sides of that intersection. So what we're going to do is we're going to reconstruct these little medians right here so that they are a little bit more, less tall. They'll be mountable by those bigger vehicles. I've driven it several times in my truck and just a regular vehicle, and you are able to make that turn safely without having to mount none of this. But it's the garbage trucks and the fire engines that end up having to mount this a little bit more as to avoid this area. So by us reconstructing these two, making them about 4 inches tall, they'll be able to safely mount on that without having to drive over that. So
What are the snowplows doing on that?
You can see the mud still on the sidewalk right there from
right.
when that's been turfed over.
Right, so we believe that by us fixing that, even snowplows will be able to.
But why do they have to squeeze that in? What's the point?
So this is, again, as you can tell, this is a transformation from what it was before. It was a very car-centric type street. We've made it more pedestrian-friendly. We wanted to be more walkable, improve you guys' travel experience. And so the emphasis here was a priority put on people bicycling and people walking. So by us doing this, we're minimizing the distance that people need to cross the street. Now they're only having to worry about this crossing on the road rather than being this wide of a street before. And so this creates a sense of visibility. It increases safety for those people. In case you happen to run out of time crossing the street, there's a refuge area where you can wait safely your turn to cross the street again. So it's just to create a little sense of, for people that are driving through there, they end up slowing down because it just makes you slow down at these important crossings like it is a trail, where we expect a lot of, maybe not so much right now, but in the future, springtime, summertime, people walking, using strollers and whatnot.
So we'll fix that within a month, and we'll also be adding reflectors to the edge of that island as well as other islands so that they're more visible, because the concrete road and the concrete islands, there's not much contrast between those two, so we'll increase the visibility of those.
I just want to understand, you're going to minimize that for larger vehicles?
Right, there'll be
I have 2 customers come into my business. One woman is here, so she ripped her bumper out in a small 2-door car. Turning there. It's not just large vehicles.
Well, I've driven it on my 4-door pickup truck.
Yes.
Just coming up here. I tried it several times, really trying to mount on that. And again, the reason we have this design is to force people to slow down. If you drive slowly, if you drive slow enough, you are able to make that turn safely without having to mount on this or this.
But
I tried it several times.
Lots of people don't know about it.
You want to?
Yeah, that's
You
the
know
thing.
about it, and lots of people don't know about it, and that's where they get into trouble.
Yeah, the
You
people that
knew
drive
what
it every
you
day
were
are good.
What is it that they don't know about it?
You know about it, so you knew to slow down. But there's a lot of people who don't know.
Yeah,
that
most of the customers who go to that area, they're new, so they wouldn't know that, I'm oh, just this is telling a you, parking number, you know, from that.
It's that one right there that's the
Right,
problem.
right. So again, what we're going to do to mitigate that, again, we're not going to eliminate it because we still definitely want to make sure that people slow down.
Yeah, just on the north side doesn't need to be that pokey out.
It just seems like you could narrow it just a little bit.
Go back
Again,
a foot.
what we're gonna do here,
Yeah.
again, I realize that people driving may have to adapt their driving behavior a little bit. The priority with this design was put on our most vulnerable travelers.
So,
We really want to force people to.
how high will that new mountable median be?
It'll be about 4 inches tall.
4 inches tall, so about that big. So most cars, except for the Batmobile, probably would be able to go over that without losing a bumper. Right now, how tall is it?
It's about
6.5 or 7.
6.5 or 7. Okay, so we're losing a couple inches. You know, it's a trade-off. I think is what we're hearing here is that we have pedestrian safety, we have drivers, we have speed, we have all these things playing a role, and we've got to find that happy median for it. I think you guys told us that you would take a look after a couple of months and see how this goes, and if there's still some issues, then we can come back and we can look at making some more changes. I mean, the one thing about transportation, use concrete, so you don't want to be making changes every 2 weeks.
Right.
You want to wait, you want to watch, you want to observe and see what happens. before you actually start digging into the ground again.
But they're not driving over the median, they're driving over
So,
the.
real quick, just to help understand, right now, that little island we have up there has 2 signs at the end of the islands. And so that's something where people can't swing out to try to miss the curb. Those signs are gonna go away. And so the concrete that's in the middle of this, it's 8 inches high right now. It'll start at 0, ramp up to 4 inches so people can drive over it. And then we'll watch, see how it performs. It has been suggested that if it doesn't go right, we'll just take it all out and level it off, and you'll have this space here. We don't want to do that yet. We want to get it where it helps slow things down and see how it performs.
I have a comment. I live on McClelland and I own a business on 9th South, so we are literally walking that every day. And I was walking down the street the other day, and one of the huge UPS trucks came through, and he turned that corner and he didn't hit the curb. So I know it can be
Onto
navigated.
McClelland or onto 9th
He
South?
was turning right off of McClelland onto 9th South. So he was coming out and turning out. So it can be done.
Oh, it can.
I don't know if there's some, I don't know who's going up on the curb. I mean, it's, you know.
It'll take some getting used to.
Like
Yeah,
I said, we typically observe for a while before we make changes because it's fairly drastic, the types of behavior changes that happen even in just a couple of months after construction. And that people do slow down and they recognize that there is a design change.
But the second comment I wanted to make is people are still speeding up and down the street.
It's
And I personally, I mean, I want the thing lowered. I understand that, you know, people are having a hard time turning the corner. But I still think we need some speed mitigation on the street. So there's something about the angle of the street, whatever. And then I also noticed that people don't have to stop at 9th and 9th. If they go through that, I mean at night, yeah, 9th and 9th, they are speeding up the street. So if, you
If
know,
they have a green
if they
light,
come to a stop and they have to start up,
Yeah.
if they get through on that green light, they're going, they're speeding. So,
Well,
Thank you. I
yeah.
appreciate that feedback.
driving between 13th and 11th, they
Yeah,
speed
11th.
down that hill. And
Yeah, they
that,
do.
something's gotta be done there,
Yeah.
for sure.
And one of the reasons why we redesigned the street is reducing it from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes, including the center turn lane, is because such a redesign, whether it's an actual physical narrowing or whether it's a visual narrowing, does have some impact on speeding and does reduce it across the board. We'll be doing, again, once people get used to it, we'll be collecting the same types of speed and volume and travel time data at the same time that we did before we built the intersection. So 2 years ago, we collected that data. And then we'll do a before and after comparison to see what effect the redesign has had.
What speed do you recommend going around that roundabout?
It's designed for 15 miles per hour.
And
So-
would it make sense to put 15 miles an hour signs on the 4 or 5 corners on the roundabout?
The reason why we designed, so let me back up just a little bit. There are 2 different concepts in traffic engineering. One of them is speed limit and one of them is design speed. Design speed is, for example, how fast do you drive into your garage? 110. I don't want to see the back of your garage. But we do drive slower when the environment is more constrained, either because we'll do damage to ourselves or our vehicle or to somebody else. And so the theory with design speed is that by increasing the friction visually or physically, that those speeds do come down. And so we intended for the design speed to be 15 miles per hour, and we'll take a look at how fast people are driving it.
Faster.
And if it is faster, then we may put up some advisory speed limit signs as you get into the roundabout.
But this is new, so wouldn't it make sense to put up signs now?
What we've been trying to do is, by design, have people drive as comfortable as they feel driving and have that speed be the speed you want, rather than just relying on a sign to tell people how fast they should drive.
More practice.
It could be, and it could be your neighbors, it could be me, I don't know. But a lot of it does come down to, will people still drive recklessly sometimes?
Yes.
Yes. Are we bringing down the average speed? That is our goal.
So that
we can't fix everyone's bad behavior through every single design iteration that we do, or else you would just have tiny driveways as streets all over the city if you wanted everybody to drive 10 miles per hour, which we could do if you want to vote for that. I would love that. But
The art is supposed to help with that a little bit too, right? The way that
it will.
Whatever
Yeah, once
they're
the
looking
shrubs in the roundabout and the art in the roundabout goes in, the data shows in other roundabout projects.
There's going to be a loop in the middle of the round.
You can't see.
I'll have an announcement about the art at the
And
end of the meeting.
we'll go over that too.
So just real quick, next steps, the 1200 East crosswalk, we still need to come back in the spring and mark it permanently. We're going to have that thermoplastic tape that's more permanent in nature.
And it'll be red, like the other crosswalks.
Right, and so we just need to wait for those warmer temperatures for us to be able to apply that. And then in the springtime, for those property owners that had a sprinkling system in their park strip before the project came in, as we added that extra section of landscaping, we extended that irrigation system. And so we'll come back and ask you to test those systems in the springtime so that if something's not working properly, we can still have our contractor come in and make that, restore that for you the way it was. And then, you want to talk about it?
I'll hit that one. So this spring, we will start what was requested last year, which is a parking study of the entire area, not just the 9th and 9th intersection, not just the roundabout, but everything about a block north and south of 9th South, as well as from 7th East to 13th East. So it'll take into account all of the businesses, residences, East High School. It will look at the existing parking on the street, off the street. It will look at different types of parking, 1 hour, 2 hour, permit parking, resident permit parking. What did you say? Roll and haul as well as any future development that is currently in the pipeline, so that we can address some of the, especially those on-street parking issues in this area. We're also doing the same thing at Central 9th, which is going also through a growth period and may experience more growth. And so in the spring, we'll be reaching out to businesses and residents and having listening sessions on what the historical parking issues are, what the current parking issues are, and then working together with the community to work on the management of that parking in ways that's comfortable to you, so that we can reduce the friction and conflict between property owners, and also increase the turnover on that parking so that parking does more with the same amount of space, both for the businesses and for the residents. Sure.
I'm concerned because the parking study doesn't take into account the parking minimums that are being reduced on 9th East.
It will take into account the off-street parking ordinance revision.
Right, but the planning commission reduced the minimums.
I understand. So it'll consider what the new ordinance says.
The community doesn't want that.
I understand, and that's something outside of transportation and more on the development and planning side. But we know what that says, and if that gets adopted, then we'll consider that. If it doesn't get adopted, we'll consider what the existing
Will the
ordinance
study ask this community what they think before it's finalized?
We will not, but the planning division has and is currently, I think, is the off-street parking ordinance open right now, or?
It was heard by the planning commission, who made a recommendation on it. So we're in the process. The planner working on that is in the process of transmitting that to city council. So I don't know city council's timeline or time frame of when that'll be on the agenda, but there will be public hearings for that, as with any ordinance adoption.
And like Micah said in his earlier presentation, obviously the on-street parking and the off-street parking are intertwined and have a relationship that can't be divided. But in terms of how the city has organized it, the planning division, being over development of private property, handles those off-street parking spaces. And then we and other divisions handle the on-street parking spaces. So we're always talking to each other. We want to make sure that as part of this parking study, we consider both kinds, on-street and off-street. And the reason why we're doing that parking study is because of what you told us and the feedback that we got from you, as well as the plan to continue the 9-line trail and an improved pavement on 900 South further west of where we ended it. So this will be in the next 3 to 4 years. We're going to settle down and have some breathing room.
It's actually within the next 2 to 3 years.
Sorry, next 2 to 3 years. And then we'll have a much more robust engagement process as we get into the core of 9th and 9th and then continue to the west. There really won't be much change to the vehicle travel lanes through 9th and 9th because on 900 South because it's already one lane in each direction and we'll leave those. There may just be some modifications to the design on the south side of the street where the 9-line trail goes. And the preliminary designs that we have do not have any roundabouts in them or any of their incumbent parking impacts. So west of Lincoln Street, in a couple of years when we design that, we'll have predictably far less parking impact than this project that we just completed. And again, we'll be engaging with all of you, with all of the businesses to make sure that as one of the core hubs of the 9-line trail is designed so that it works for you and it works for people who are coming to frequent the businesses and coming to your homes and parks as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Salt Lake City Transportation, Salt Lake City Engineering. Daryl's got something to say.
So I hope you paid attention and Tom just said it. Rob got a little, his crow's feet went, oh, I get it, because Tom just said the project will continue west from Lincoln Street. That 9-line trail goes west from there. Did everybody hear that? I hope you did, because this project is a real example of the city listening to the community. The original plan isn't anything like what it started. And you guys said, wait, whoa, we're not sure we're comfortable with that. So thank you to Tom and the others of the city. They completely redesigned it. They came to our community council how many times and said, what do you want? And because of it, we ended up with the design that's there now. So as that process continues to the west, I know he'll be back. And we'll have a chance to talk about what happens on 8th East and 9th South. Nate?
And it's online. The plan is online.
Yeah.
Yes, if you want to see the entire 9-line trail, it's called the 9-line Trail Extension Study, and it's on the city's website. But if you just Google that title, it will come up as the first result. 8.5 miles stretch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Matt. If any of you would like a copy of the ELPCO report, we've got 2 copies up here. You can pick them up after the meeting. Would you like one? There you go. They're not autographed, but Nancy did a fabulous job putting those together, so thank you again, Nancy. Laura, you've got a presentation. Why don't I get it going and you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just so you keep going.
Yeah, there's multiple things on there.
Oh, what's it called?
It'll say 10-minute presentation.
Okay.
Should be pretty self-explanatory.
All right, we'll get it done. Go right up and I'll...
All right. Hi, I am also from Salt Lake City Transportation. My name is Laura Worker, and I'm a transportation planner with the city.
Stand by the tape. Yeah, do you want to actually stand right over there?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. So yeah, I'm a transportation planner with the city in the strategic planning and programming side of things. So a little bit more of the planning, more of the project delivery side of it. And so,
There you go. You got a clicker and you've got a laser. We only give the lasers to people we trust. So.
Well, I feel honored. And so one of the big things that I do is work really closely with UTA to improve our transit offerings throughout the city. And this past August, am I standing in the way of? Okay, perfect. We launched what is the first phase of our frequent transit network. So it's 3 routes at this point, and again, that's just the first phase. So we have Route 2, Route 9, and 21 for the relative streets, 200, 900, 2100. And it's, well, so on those 3, it's defined, frequent service is defined as every 15 minutes from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And then on late night, so from 7 p.m. to midnight, it goes to 30-minute frequency, and then on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. it's also 30-minute frequency. And so some of these routes didn't have Sunday service before, none of them had late night service until midnight. So we made some of those improvements, and then I know that Route 9 is most relevant, I think, probably to everyone in this room, but just as a side note, the 2 in conjunction with Route 220, for most of that corridor along 2nd South, it's running every 7 minutes. So it's pretty frequent along that route, and then about 15 minutes again along the 9. So the city thinks that this is an important investment. One, we want to make sure that people can use transit, like more people can use transit to get to more places, that anyone who doesn't have a personal vehicle is able to still get around the city and get to those goods and services and destinations that they're trying to reach. And any trip that we can get someone to take on the bus or on transit instead of in a personal car reduces emissions and will hopefully lead to better air quality here in the valley. So, got ahead of myself. Already been over this slide. So a big part of this is just creating east-west connections across the city, because UTA already has some 15-minute frequency routes on State Street, 5th East, 9th East, but we wanted to make those east-west connections as well. So students at the high schools or with that late night service are now able to stay after school for extracurricular activities where they may not have been able to before if they didn't have access to cars. So having that late night service until midnight has been a game changer for that. And then also all 3 of the routes go to the U. And they're a huge portion of UTA's ridership, so that's a really big resource as well. So if anyone's not familiar with the system, I'm just going to really quickly go over rideuta.com is the best way to look up all of the schedules and all the places. Also the transit app. And it's called that. I know it's not. It's descriptive, but everyone's like, well, what's it called? It's the transit app. Yeah, it's great. It shows live bus time. Like it'll tell you exactly when your next bus is coming, and it'll help you route the best course to your destination. So you don't have to sort through different PDFs or scroll through timetables. It'll just help you get where you're trying to go. So I highly recommend that app. And then there are 3 easy basic ways to pay. You can use cash on the system. It does need to be exact change, as bus operators don't carry change. There's a variety of pass programs that are available through UTA. Some employers will offer transit passes through that program. Salt Lake City residents, which all of you are, have access to the Hive Pass, which is a half price monthly pass through UTA. So if you're a frequent transit user, then that'll give you unlimited access on all buses except for the ski bus and I think the Park City Connect and all the tracks, and then it'll give you 1 stop on Frontrunner. So it doesn't cover your whole Frontrunner ride, but it'll cover the $250 base fare and then one station beyond that. And it also includes includes a membership to a green bike, so you can ride your green bike to the station, and that's all included. And then the third way to pay, if you're maybe not a super frequent transit rider, so you don't need a monthly pass, but you want to use it occasionally, I recommend the UTA Go Ride app. It's really simple. You can just buy a one-way ticket or a round-trip ticket, and then you just show your phone to the operator as you board. So that's really simple. Yes, sir.
Fair pay card, $1.50 for the bus.
It's what? I'm sorry.
It's $1.50 for the bus if you use a fair pay.
Oh, right, the discount. Yes, yeah. So if you have the fair pay card, which is just paying in advance, basically, yeah, you don't have to pay that full fare every time you ride. That's a good one. Okay, so part of this process is we are trying to make frequent transit network sound a little more catchy. So we're working with a consultant on marketing and branding the system. And again, as I mentioned, these 3 routes are just the beginning of what over the coming years we're going to build into a citywide network. We have in our transit master plan a couple of different what we call tiers of near-term demand for a lot of corridors within the city. The next 2 that we're going to be rolling out, not this year, but in 2021, are going to be 6th North and 10th North. And so those will be in 2021, and then there are several other corridors in the future. And I think that there are only a few that are worth calling future demand, where it's just lower density residential areas like 13th South. But again, eventually we will have at least 15-minute or better service, just mirroring our grid system on like a 2 to 4 block spacing. So with names, we're working really closely with UTA. We want it to be clear that it's still part of the UTA system, but we do want to create something that will make it clear. You know, if you're walking down the street and you see a station that maybe has this brand, this new name that is yet to be come up with, you'll know that that's a frequent bus. That bus is going to be there for me in 15 minutes or less. So it's part of our community collaboration, because many minds are greater than one created than my own. So we'll be taking suggestions as the weeks and months go on, and throwing it all into the pot and talking to UTA and seeing what we can copyright and legally put in there. But that is one part that we're seeking to get some input from. And then in addition, we also have a survey that's out right now. It is geared both towards users of the system and people who may be interested in writing the system, but we want to know what's keeping you from writing the system. What barriers? Is it legibility of the UTA system? Are there bike and pedestrian connections between your home and your nearest bus stop that make it difficult for you to get there? You spend more time on your block or in that space than we as citywide staff can. So we want to hear that kind of granular information that we don't inherently know, but you all do. So we're really interested in getting that so that we can work on building this network and just building the transit system in general in the city to be better serve everyone. So I'm very happy to get those surveys here if you're interested, and then there's also a link that maybe I can get Jason to send out. So I would love it if you would all take that survey, whether you use the system or not. We want to hear from everyone. So yeah, that's my quick auctioneer spiel. Can I answer any questions?
My daughter thanks you for the 15-minute, so she can get to school and not have to wait a half hour.
Good. Really glad.
Very happy.
Awesome. All right. Yes.
It's really easy to get to the airport using the 9 and transferring at 200 west and 900 south. It's really kind of tremendous. It's made traveling less of a headache. So thank you. Yeah, it's really great.
Great. And I do also have some really fun maps. They're really beautiful, and they just list a bunch of destinations that are along. I brought the Route 9 one. Have a bunch of businesses and restaurants and stuff that's along the route. So I'll leave those on the table and I'll show that one. Really nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I forgot to introduce you. I was trying to work on your PowerPoint, but you are with Salt Lake Transportation, is that right?
Yes.
And what is your title?
Transportation planner.
All right, Laura Handworker, transportation planner. So now we'll introduce you when you're done. But her information is on the agenda if you wanted to contact her. And let us be a conduit for getting the news out about it. The 15 minutes, getting to the airport, those are two great things that we now have almost right at our doorstep here in ELPCO.
So here's some fancy maps.
Next on the agenda, we have Tim Cosgrove. We have again Tim Cosgrove, I should say, because there's been some developments in City Hall. And he's here to tell us a little about that, if you don't mind standing right there.
Thank you. I'm Tim. It's nice to be back. I worked with the former administration, and I'm very happy to serve for Mayor Aaron Mendenhall. Serving the people is important to me, and it's how I feel I can contribute and make a difference, so I'm very excited to be here. Aaron's got a platform to improve our air quality and to expand and create opportunities for all of our city residents, and then to improve the resiliency and the sustainability for our future. There's many ways that we work on these goals and objectives. We introduced the new temporary shelter, Sugar House, this week. and I'm happy to answer questions on that. It's going to complement the current model that we have with our homeless resource centers and getting people access to other resources and help them transition into housing. Are there questions on that? Have you heard about that? No, you're familiar with it. We have our law enforcement that will also be expanded in that area. We'll have 2 additional officers, and there's a lot of opportunities to serve at the shelter and volunteer at the homeless resource centers. They're looking for support from you, from the community. And one of the reasons why I love ELPCO so much is because of your activism, because of your involvement and your engagement. And I wanted to give a shout out to Jason, and I know George and Amy was here earlier. They all had thrown their hats in the ring to run for city council, to serve in city council. And that's quite a sacrifice. I've served in elected office before, and for them to be willing to step up and do that, that speaks very highly, very, very empowering from your community. So that came from you here. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you.
And Nancy as well.
And Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. I did bring some information. The city's receiving increased requests from our wireless providers for the small cell antennas, the small cell infrastructure. Those are the towers that the legislature had passed last year and agreed that they can expand services in the public right-of-ways. So we're receiving requests for those master lease agreements to be, it allows for the wireless providers to put those towers in the right-of-ways. If you want some additional information, the website's listed on there, or we could have someone come and speak specifically on that.
Is Google Fiber ever going to get to this part of town?
Seriously.
And then the city's also partnering with the county this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for...
You don't know the answer?
No, I don't. I thought you were just making...
No, I'm serious.
No, I don't know that. This area was not targeted for increased service from Google Fiber. This specific area was not targeted as a priority for Google Fiber expanded service.
Google Fiber has decided they'd rather go 5G, but they've slowed down significantly from their plans. So all the promises are out the window. And there are a couple of other agencies that are doing it. Verizon's doing some fiber. But the reality is they expect 5G to supersede. So the real question is, where are the 5G antennas going to be placed? When will we know?
There's some information with the wireless providers applying for master lease agreements on the site. We can get those locations.
They won't tell us. They're going to send out letters when they place them to residents and say, hey, you did this.
And that's why I'm bringing it to your attention now, so you can get ahead of that, and maybe you can have them come and speak at this community council. All right. Any other questions? Answer.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great that Mayor Mendenhall, who many of us know as Councilwoman Mendenhall, has kept many of the familiar faces and people that we work with, including Tim Cosgrove, as our community liaison. So it's great to have him back. I wanted to go over a couple of quick announcements just before we wrap up the meeting. One is the big one, of course, is that we have a new District 5 council member. Darren Maceo Mano was selected on Tuesday night by the Salt Lake City Council in a very long meeting. Nancy and I were both there for the whole thing. We had both applied for it. We're not selected, but Darren is an architect. He's vice chair of the Ballpark Community Council and has served on the Salt Lake City Planning Commission. Had to resign that post, actually, when he was selected for the council. So he's someone who knows a lot about development, urban development, He actually helped design the Topaz Museum down at the Topaz Monument down in sort of south central Utah, where the Japanese internment camp was. Judy, you let me know about that today. I appreciate you sending me that article. He emailed me earlier today and said he's sorry he wasn't able to make this meeting, but he does plan on trying to come to as many as he can and wants to get to know members of the East Liberty Park Community Organization. So he's someone who has come up through community councils, understands them, knows them, and I think that's a really good thing because, you know, this is where a lot of stuff gets done, things get hashed out, people get their voices heard, and it's important to have a representative who respects that. So I think we've got that with Darren. Hopefully we'll all be able to meet him soon. He's a really nice guy, very smart and energetic and really into this city. What that also means is that there's an opening on the Salt Lake City Planning Commission for Districts 5 and also District 6. So if any of you are interested in taking that next step and getting involved and being sort of at the center of what's going on with development and planning in Utah, this is a pretty cool, interesting job. You apply through the mayor's office, and then you're interviewed by the council after you're nominated, I believe, by the mayor for this position. So 2 vacancies, District 5 and District 6, which is Yellcrest, now on that commission. So think about it. You can go to the boards and commissions website at saltlakecitygov.com and check that out. The third thing I wanted to mention was the 9th and 9th roundabout public art. That came up a little bit in our discussion about the reconstruction there. The deadline for submitting an idea is tomorrow. So everyone go home and get your crayons and pencils out and start working on it. 5 p.m. tomorrow, which probably means that it's too late, right? But it is exciting that this is moving forward. If you do want more information about it, there's a website, saltlakepublicart.org is where all of the new public art commissions and ideas are put forward. And you can also email publicartprogram@saltlakeslcgov.com. Publicartprogram@slcgov.com. Kat Nix has actually presented at ELPCO about what this process is going to be. She's going to come back. We're going to have a pretty good public engagement on what goes on here. And obviously, everyone thinks they're an art critic, and we know what we're doing. So we're going to probably leave most of it to professionals, but there will be a nice chance for the public to be involved with this. And I'll check in with her and find out how many people have submitted ideas after tomorrow and see what the next steps are. 2 more things. We have some open positions at ELPCO, a volunteer coordinator and a secretary. And several people actually have recently written into us and wanted to get involved. Nancy joined as the 9th and 9th business liaison. And Joey's going to help us out with social media. He wasn't able to be here tonight, but we have some folks that are kind of stepping up and wanting to take it to the next level. We have a lot more to do than we have hands to do them. So the more that get involved, the better. So if you want to get involved, reach out to us at elpcoslc@gmail.com or talk to us after a meeting. Particularly volunteer coordinator and secretary are 2 board positions that we'd love to fill. And Daryl, I have one more thing, but I wanted to check in to see if there was any agenda items or things that you wanted to bring up.
So we don't know what the new mayor. Council member Mendenhall was fabulous as our council member for us. Now she's our mayor. We presume she will keep, and Tim, you may know, the every other month meetings. Have you heard anything about, are those going to continue?
Where she goes out to the community councils?
No, I'm sorry. Jason and I get invited to have lunch with her about every other month. We haven't.
I really depend on those free lunches.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that. I'll follow first.
But if you could ask, because that's a great source for Jason and I to take your concerns directly to the mayor.
She's coming to Sugar House in February for our meeting.
This is the February 5th meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll find out and let you know on that. As Jason said, Tim is the mayor's liaison. Mayor Mendenhall retained Tim in his job. Yes, he didn't get fired. And his information is here on the agenda. Very approachable. You can call or email if you have questions or concerns citywide. He's a resource of information for you. So that's
cool. I just had one last agenda item, which was we are planning our meetings for 2020. We've got a couple of ideas that I mentioned. We have Salt Lake City Airport coming in March to talk to us about what's going on out there. Of course, that new airport's going to open in September. We've got a couple more transit and development projects looking forward to, but here's a couple of things that I came up with, and I'd love your feedback. And, if you want to write them in, or you can talk to me now about it. But affordable housing, getting something on the agenda about affordable housing, particularly in ELPCO. What do we do with some of the rentals and some of the low-cost housing in our neighborhoods? Where's it going? Do we have enough? Do we not need it? Let's have an open-ended conversation about that. Inland Port. I went to a really cool presentation with Stan Penfold, former city council member, and Taylor Stevens, the Salt Lake Tribune reporter who covers this. They gave a really great in-depth, overview of what's going on with the inland port. We're thinking about maybe having them come to our meeting and do that same thing, or one or the other, depending on their schedule. I think Sugar House Community Council had Taylor come in December, Taylor Stevens, and gave a really good overview of what that's about. That issue's not going away. It's very confusing. A lot of people want to know what it is. So I think we'll start with a 101 about the inland port here at Tokyo. 1100 East Corridor. We spent a lot of time talking about 9th South. There's another business corridor in our neighborhood, the 11th East Corridor. You've got Tallulah Gallery, you've got Kyoto, you've got Hub and Spoke. You've got a lot of neat, interesting businesses there, a little bit more spread out. But there's some changes that could be coming to that street. And so we want to make sure that we're staying up on that. So a meeting focused on 11th East, sort of doing a little bit of a reorientation north-south instead of east-west.
And piggybacking on that, if you've driven 11th East on the west side of the street, where the old Traces used to be, that's a prime example of a forest that all of a sudden disappeared.
Yeah.
The good
The
news is,
presentation that was given to us is not what's getting put there.
It's not. It's going to become a daycare center, St. John CDC. They are coming actually, is Andrew still here? Are they coming in March, or is it in March? Yeah.
Completely, but yeah.
So we're going to have them come and give a presentation for us in March about what's going in there. It should be almost done by that point.
Yeah.
But it's part of the St. John's. Is it an Episcopal or a Lutheran church?
Lutheran, the same Lutheran church on.
It's just right over here on 5th East.
Yeah.
So that church is putting in a new daycare center on that site. A couple buildings going in. So
nice to see that they've tried to preserve the traces, that old house.
They're keeping the house.
Well, it's nice they kept the house, but it's funny because they had a big sign up saying like nature something center, and then they cut down all the trees.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a waste.
They were deceased. I don't know if anybody else heard that or not, but they were deceased. That's what I heard. They said they're going to replant.
So they have 3 arborists coming.
Well, that'll be an exciting meeting to find out what they're going to do, and I think they're even going to be able to give us a tour or something like that. So we'll definitely keep in touch with that.
And real fast, before I forget, I'm really excited about this, and Judy is too. If you drive on 11th East and 17th South, southeast corner, you will notice that the old sign for the costume shop went back restored.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's a great use of adaptive reuse, right?
Yeah.
Of an old building that was kind of put back together.
For preservation use award. That's great.
Okay.
That was good.
Yeah, definitely check that out. If you're heading south on 11th East, look up for that sign. It's very prominently displayed, very nicely done. Any comments and ideas from the audience? George, about what we can cover?
90s parking minimums have changed.
Okay,
Or are being changed.
based on the new off-street parking.
Right, because it's a frequent transit network. And I think the planning commission, or planning group, should come in and discuss that.
Okay, get that on the agenda. I agree. That definitely could change any sort of calculations for parking for future developments, especially along the 9th South corridor.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, because I take the bus on there all the time, and it's really hard when you're getting off the bus on the west side to cross the street again. It's so packed there, and you can't see around the parking.
On 9th South.
On 9th East.
On 9th East, okay.
Going up and down.
On 9th East. We've actually been getting some speeding concerns on 9th East as well. That people have been seeing cars going too fast. It's something we're looking into. It's kind of a complaint that came over email to us. Any other ideas, things like that we should be looking at? Robert?
It'd be really interesting if there was kind of a presentation or kind of an educational presentation on just urban planning, urban design. What makes a community our community? What makes it 400 South, 400 South? What makes our community our community? What makes sandy. You know, and you know what comes into
What does
creating a
R,
neighborhood.
R30,
Yeah, and creating a
R5000 mean? What does CBD mean? All that kind of, well, CBD is that
absolutely.
oil, right? But it's also commercial business. So you gotta make sure you get the right one. But yeah, having someone from Salt Lake City planning, coming in and giving us a planning 101 would be pretty cool.
It's on their website after.
Okay, and I know they do it for other city council or community councils. Cindy, you let me know that Preservation Utah is doing a home tour in 9th and 9th, is that right?
Yes, and Janice is here.
April 25th, Anzac Day. Great. We'll have a home tour for Preservation Utah here at 9th and 9th. That's pretty cool. Okay. We'll have a couple meetings before then. So yeah, it's nice to kind of get to know your neighborhood a little bit. Robert, I really like that idea. And definitely we'll get the, you know, the planning or the parking one on the agenda as well. Any others? If
I
you
do have one, but I don't want to take it.
Well, if you want to talk to us afterwards, or email me, or email elpcoslc@gmail.com. That's a nice way to get in touch with us as well. Are we good?
I think we're good.
We're so close to being on time tonight, guys. My wife had to go in and do a delivery, so my kids are home alone. I imagine there'll be like green fireworks coming out of the chimney as I drive up. Yes, one or the other. Thank you. We are adjourned. Our next meeting is February 27th. They're not.